Remember 15 years ago when everyone had those Nokia phones with the game Snake on them? Everyone loved that. Nowadays, everyone has a smartphone. No one has a Nokia anymore. We have moved on as technology has progressed. The same cannot be said of the Sri Lankan cricket team in ODIs. In 1996, they revolutionized the ODI game, and everyone wanted to play like Sri Lanka back in those days. But now, the game has completely changed, and Sri Lanka have not moved on with the times as the ODI game has progressed. Sri Lanka are still using a Nokia while everyone else is using a smartphone. This might just be the worst ODI team Sri Lanka has ever put out. They've been whitewashed 5-0 three times this year. That has never happened before. They've won 4 games and lost 21 this year, the third worst win-loss ratio ever in a calendar year. And the worst of all, they are on a 12-game losing streak. That is their second worst of all time, and you would be hard-pressed to suggest that that streak won't get bigger given that their next ODI assignment is against India in a couple of months' time. Sri Lanka were completely outplayed by a clinical Pakistani team in this series, and I think any cricket follower would accept that Pakistan is a better team than Sri Lanka. But the disappointing thing for Sri Lanka has been that they are making the same errors over and over again. Throughout this year, it's been a familiar story for Sri Lanka, and it only seems to be getting worse. There is no light at the end of the tunnel at the moment for this Sri Lankan team. So what is holding them back? The bowling lineup lacks venom. However, there isn't much bowling talent in Sri Lanka. So unfortunately, I think it's just a reality that this team will struggle to take wickets and restrict the opposition. But the same cannot be said for the batting. There is batting talent in Sri Lanka. So to see the batting lineup as it is, so dysfunctional, is painful to watch. Incredibly, Sri Lanka have gone 11 consecutive games without posting 250. That is a mind-boggling statistic. In an era where 300 is considered a pass score, this team can't even put 250 on the board. The bowling attack simply has no chance when the batting is putting up the kind of totals that they are. So what is holding the batting back? There's a couple of things at play here. One is the power hitting in the team. Sri Lanka averaged 2.27 sixes per game this year in ODIs. That is the worst ratio among test playing nations. There is a clear lack of power hitting in this team. However, you don't need to score sixes and boundaries galore to score quickly in ODIs. Just look at the best batsman in the world, Virat Kohli. He does most of his work in singles and twos. So I think what is really killing the Sri Lankan batting at the moment is the amount of dot balls they are facing. The lack of strike rotation is the biggest issue. And I think two players embody this issue pretty perfectly. Dinesh Chandimal and Lahiru Thirimana. Once upon a time, the two great hopes of Sri Lanka cricket, guys that were expected to replace the greats. Well, these two have underwhelmed this year in ODIs. Chandimal has a strike rate of 59 this year. Thirimana not much better at only 66. Those are two appalling strike rates in ODIs, especially nowadays when anything under 80 is detrimental to your team. You being out there scoring at a strike rate of under 80 is actually costing the team. These two are getting bogged down way too easily and are struggling to rotate the strike. And we already know they're both not particularly good power hitters. But then when you add the fact that they struggle to rotate the strike, it's a recipe for disaster. And with these two in the top 4, Sri Lanka's innings are never getting off the ground. But strike rate isn't just an issue for these two, it is also an issue for the Sri Lankan tailenders. The highest strike rate for a Sri Lankan tailender this year is Dushmantha Chamira with a strike rate of 69. Most countries have tailenders that can hit boundaries. The Sri Lankan tailenders seemingly can't hit the ball off the square. And this is another issue with the Sri Lankan batting, that if they lose early wickets or when they get into the slog overs and the tailenders are exposed, the innings invariably fizzles out. So what can Sri Lanka do to remedy this problem? Well, I think they need a fresh approach. They need to wipe the slate clean in this batting lineup. And I think it starts with Dinesh Chandimal and Lahiru Thirimana. You can't afford guys in key positions scoring so slowly. Also, Sri Lanka need to get rid of guys like Chamara Kapugedera, Tissera Pereira, and Milinda Siriwardena. All of these guys have averages of below 25. They are simply not good enough batsmen, full stop. Sri Lanka need the likes of Danushka Gunatilaka, Angelo Matthews, Kusal Pereira, Asela Gunaratne back in the squad for those India ODIs, fitness permitting, obviously. But also, I think a guy like Dasun Shanaka should be given a go, plays a very similar role to Tissera Pereira. And when you consider the amount of chances Tissera Pereira has been given, I think it's only right that Dasun Shanaka gets a good stint in the team to prove himself. So overhauling the personnel would be a start. But the biggest thing is to change the approach and play the way almost every other country is playing ODIs nowadays. Stack the batting with power hitters, conserve wickets, accelerate slowly but surely through the middle overs, and then put the foot firmly on the accelerator in the slog overs with some power hitting. To be honest, it amazes me that the Sri Lankan think tank hasn't thought to change the approach of the ODI batting for so long. To be so blind to such obvious deficiencies in the team is quite amazing to me. But hopefully, this series provides a watershed moment for the team and we see some change and we see the team at least compete in India, at least play the game with the right approach. Sri Lanka need to let go of that old Nokia phone. Yes, I know they've had some great times together, but it's time to move on and get that smartphone like everyone else has.